Hey y'all, welcome to I Got a Story to Tell. I'm your host, Niambi Kiesha, holistic wellness practitioner, hoodoo spiritist, and Bronx native. And during our time together, I will share some of my musings on all things life, spirit, plants, and parenting. So get comfortable and let's dive right in. All right. So, welcome to another episode of the I Got a Story to Tell podcast. I'm your host, Niambi. And this week, we're going to continue with our community building series, just talking about what it is, why it's important for us in these times that we find ourselves. And over the past few weeks, I've had some amazing guests come on and just share about what community means to them, how it shows up in their lives. And so this week, I am excited to have with us Concita Thomas. Concita is a sustainable weight loss and wellness coach, but she is also my really good girlfriend. And so we go way back. And when I thought about this, I know, right? Way back. But when I thought about this topic, like I've shared over the past couple of weeks, the podcast was going to start out on a different direction. But as we entered 2025, as we had our new administration take office, I just began to see things unfold that signaled to me that I needed to shift direction and that this idea of community, this idea of true connection, right? Not just what we might get through, whether it be social media or our connections through technology, this idea of true connection, support, and community is important in this season. I shared maybe a few episodes ago that I firmly believe there are stretches of time where we are in what has been created as our norms. And then we have sort of like those end caps where the norm of a society, the order of the world as we know it shifts. And I believe we're finding ourselves in that time right now where we are watching a new world order unfold. And then there are those of us that within these times, we are doing work in one way or another to contribute to and impact what will be life as the next generation knows it. And so I wanted to bring our guests on to just talk about how they are contributing, how they see themselves pouring into the world that we're building. And so I'm going to turn it over to Concita. I'm going to call her Connie during our time together today. But I'm going to turn it over to you, Connie. Introduce yourself. And yeah, let's just start there.
Hello, hello. My name is Concita Thomas, and as Niambi said, I'm a sustainable weight loss and wellness coach. Primarily, what that means is I work with women over 40 who want to lose weight and keep it off without giving up carbs and sweets. And I also work with corporations and organizations who want a healthier workforce. As Niambi mentioned, we go way back. We're not saying years because we're only 21. But I'm really, really honored to be here in this space as she launches this new venture, which I know is going to be amazing.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So let's just jump right in. Talk to us about, I would guess you would say, talk to us about how you got started in this space. And then as you work through that, tell us what community means to you, whether that's in this space with your clients personally, but take us through your story a little bit.
Okay, so I'll start with my story and then I'll circle back to what community means to me, and you might have to remind me.
Yes, no
So
problem.
with my story, really how I got into doing this work, the part that I was conscious of was my own personal pain turned into a passion. So when I went to college, I gained weight. And, people may say, oh, no big deal, everybody does, the freshman 15. But my freshman 15 was the gift that kept on giving. So there was like the freshman 15, the sophomore 15. We tried a few diets by junior year, which netted us to a gain of 10. You heard me right. diets netted a gain, and that kind of gives you a clue as to why I do what I do when I say sustainable weight loss. And but really, I struggled. I can't even say I struggled so much with my weight during college. Like I was gaining weight, and I would go through spurts where I would try and do something about it, and it wasn't really a struggle because throughout that time, I was still fit. So whenever I laced up my sneakers and decided to go for a run, I still could. And I was a track athlete prior to coming to college, so like that part was important. Whenever I decided to show up at the athletic center for a spin class, I could. So I didn't really worry about the fact that I was gaining weight because it was not impacting me in terms of mobility, what I was able to do. There were no health effects yet. And thank goodness I was able to get myself together before there ever were any occurrences of blood pressure or, higher A1C, anything like that. But what was happening is, despite the fact that I was not restricting myself at all when it came to food, I was imposing a different restriction on myself because, especially back then, again, we're not going to count years, but as I got back then, the plus size market was nothing like what it is today. You could be what's considered straight size and have really cute fashion options like what girls in college want to have, or you could be plus size and you could dress like Big Mama because that's all that was available at the time. So as I started growing out of the regular stores, I became more and more concerned. But fast forward, I graduated from college. When I went into college, I was about a size six or so. And when I graduated, my 14, 16s were like, they were screaming at the seams. So who knows what size I really was. At some point, I refused to buy anything bigger. And naively, I was not all that worried because I first started, my first career was an engineer. And so I knew I was going to be making bank. So hiring a personal trainer was going to be no problem. No husband, no kids, and a professional career. Like, no problem, right? A couple pounds, we can handle that. Well, I was wrong. I went on diets, I hired trainers, like I did all the things, right? And I got varying results. When I worked with trainers, mostly what happened, because I was an ex-athlete, I was really fun to train. I got fitter, faster, stronger, not much smaller. Um, and I didn't understand why, and I was getting frustrated, and I was about tired of pouring money into that. When I went on diets, I could get some semblance of results, right? I can lose a couple pounds, but I wasn't really getting all the way to where I wanted to be. And then eventually I did get to where I wanted to be, but it was a full-time job to try and maintain it. And eventually I didn't. So I spent years losing and gaining those same pounds. And during that time, I had a career shift as well because when I was working as an engineer, I was also at some point I became a certified personal trainer. Let's back up to how that happened. Remember I said I got tired of pouring money into trainers and just getting fitter, faster, stronger, and like that wasn't the goal. So, no shade to personal trainers because I am a certified personal trainer too. But I was like, I'm a whole mechanical engineer. This cannot be rocket science. I'm going to get certified and figure out what they are not telling me. Like, they're gatekeeping. They just want me to keep paying. I would just go get certified. I could figure this out myself. Like, if you're a professional woman, take note. I know that resonates. We always think we can figure everything out ourselves and do it ourselves, right? So I became a personal trainer during that time. And eventually, I cobbled together enough with the right food approaches and working out, and I was able to lose the weight. What I discovered when I became a certified personal trainer was that the reason why my trainers weren't really able to help me lose weight it wasn't because they were gatekeeping, it's because in a textbook that was about this thick about personal training, there were about 12 pages about nutrition, and it was everything you learned in sixth grade biology, like what's a carb, what's a fat, what's a protein, that very little substance that someone could put together in order to help someone who wants to lose weight. And I realized that it wasn't my workout that really I needed to be focused on. It was my food. It was what I was putting in my mouth. This is this type of podcast. So I'm just going to out myself. I'm going to give you something to laugh about. I am the girl that used to leave this. I would leave work, I would go to a step class. And on my way home, I thought I was really doing something because I got the small frosty and the small fry as my snack. You heard me snack on the way home
From
before.
step class.
So like we should really not be surprised. Knowing, I think the mainstream probably knows more about nutrition and the role of nutrition and how you have to balance nutrition and exercise for weight loss than we did back then. Back then, it made total sense. Now in 2025, the layperson listening to this is probably like, you thought what? But like, that's what I was doing. So the trainers in my gym eventually knew that I was a certified personal trainer. At this point, I had achieved what was considered success. So I had cobbled together enough of what I knew about food and what I knew about fitness, and I had gotten down to my goal weight. But your girl was fighting like mad to hold on to it. The reason why the trainers knew me so well is because I had to be a gym rat. And if I skipped so much as 2 to 3 days in a row, my pants would get tight. So on the outside, it looked like a success, but it was like a duck. You know, if you've ever seen a duck just floating down a canal, what you don't know is under it's like this,
Mhm.
like they're just floating. That was me. And so they needed another personal trainer. They had some personal training openings. They knew I was a personal trainer. They knew my form was immaculate. I pushed myself hard, and I was approached to apply to be on the training staff. Now, I told you I was an engineer, but again, I was single, I had no kids. So I took that on as a part-time job, and thus the journey began because at least I felt like, okay, I know more to help people than what was shared with me
Mhm.
because I have successfully gotten myself results and I know that they could do 1,000,000 squats and 50, 11 lunges. And that if they're not watching their portions, cutting back on fried foods, etc., they're not going to get results. So that's how I started in the industry. But I, I'll stop there and like we can come
Yeah.
back to how it evolved from me working as a part-time trainer to eventually getting certified in nutrition and behavior change and um really embracing sustainability for myself,
Mhm.
not just for my clients, but that was a very long story to the beginning of the journey.
Yeah. No, that was really good. As long as we've known each other, I even got a few gems or a few nuggets, right? But you
Yeah.
said some really good things because I took a few notes and what I heard you say is first of all, you got here because your pain turned to passion, right? And so like I said, I'm doing this series with people that I know are passionate about the work, are passionate about sharing accurate, informative, sustainable. I'm glad you used the word sustainable information because even though the mainstream might have more knowledge or understanding right now, the cycle is the same, right? When on the very first episode of this, I said, right now, I feel like they are peddling fear worse than the crack epidemic, right? So it's still understanding that a lot of people are trying to find information to save their lives. Now, that could be from a spiritual perspective. That could be, when I spoke with our guest last week about the homesteading and growing your own food, that could be about mental discipline from the martial arts. But there's so much information available, that book, right? But how do you sift through what's valuable? How do you find these are all some of the tenets that I shared about what's important when we think about building community,
Mhm.
shared values, trust, honesty. So even if you are looking for a professional like Connie to help you, you need to suss your professionals out. You need to get to the bottom of it and figure out who they are, and more than just the little bit that we see on social media or Instagram. There are some things going on. I mean, from I come a lot of my life is spent in the spiritual world, like with spirituality, and we talk about the scammers all the time because when people are desperate, right, and you tell them I can give you an answer, a solution that's 2 seconds from God, they'll turn their life over to you, right? And so we just have to know. I'm glad that you shared that you want to find people that have walked the walk, that have continued to fine tune, right? So you didn't stop. You got a trainer yourself. Then you said, wait a minute, let me get the information. The mechanic, I mean, not the mechanic, the engineer in you kept coming back like, no, 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 I'm going to fine tune this. These are some of the tenets when you are looking where to build community. You want your people to have these values. You want your people to be speaking in this language. So, yeah, that was really good. That was really good.
Thank you.
Yes. So, talk to us about how you see the importance of community. What does community mean to you? And what does it look like for, let's say, your clients? What should they be looking for? Just go down that road for us.
Okay, so what community means to me is a group of people, of course, that have shared values. Um, And I guess in having shared values, you can have shared worldview. And the reason why I said I guess is because I'm in community with people. Well, first of all, I have different communities. So that's the first thing, right? To be in
Yes.
community is not like a one big place and like you get all your stuff in this one place. I have different communities. So I guess I'll just say shared values because I am in community with some people where we do not share the same worldview. We don't. However, within that particular community, we do have a shared value. So I'm in communities at each of my children's schools. I'm in what do you call it? I'm in a mom community. I'm in a church community. I'm in a community of families that has almost chosen, not even almost, has chosen to become a family, if you will. It's a family of friends. In another community that's separate from that one, and now starting to have a little bit of overlap because somebody from that community is now a bigger part of this community. So it's to me, it's a group of people that have shared values. And not only do they share the same values, but they share their resources, whether it be knowledge or time, to help everyone in the community achieve the aim of the value that they share.
Mm,
So,
mhm, mhm.
yeah, I mean, I have business communities. I have communities that are like online business owners. I have communities that are like women business owners. I have communities that are fitness coaches. I've got a lot of different communities, lots of circles.
Right, right. Yeah, no. So I appreciate that. And again, just it's interesting for me, right? Because I'm watching the thread. And so I'm glad you touched on the worldview, right? Because like I said, that's what prompted this entire shift in direction for the podcast. But understanding that we can have different worldviews, shared values, and the reality is one of those values is likely respect, right? So we have differing worldviews, but in this space, what we're working toward is this and the sharing of resources. That's the other thing that I think is important when we think about community. I think we have to understand that community is a two-way street. It has to be reciprocal. It is not just I'm going here to get what I need and I'm going here to get what I need. It cannot be transactional. And so I think that's a lot of what we're seeing. We're seeing some individuals getting confused with the transaction of I need this, so I'm going to go over here, and I need this, I'm going to go over here. But what do you leave? What do you leave in that place? What do you give? What do you contribute to make that cycle continue, to make that cup continue to overflow? So I think that's important. And I'm glad that you mentioned the multiple communities because in this day and age, like you're not in your hometown, I'm not in my hometown. We both have been in the cities that we're in for an extended period of time, so you can begin to build in those areas. But it there's some of the organic nature of remaining in your hometown where there are like generations and generations. Some of that you just have to be intentional about just given how we relocate, how we move around. And so, talk to us about, I know you said you were going to come fast forward to today and how things look for you in the work that you do. And so, the thing I was going to share is another thread has been sometimes you don't really have to go searching for your community. What you need to do is show up as your authentic self.
Yes. Oh
Your
my God.
authentic self, though, because
Yes.
if you show up as the version you think somebody wants, then that'll be the community you end up in. And those are not your people.
No, those are not your people. And it's interesting. It's interesting too, because I know we share this. Your authentic self may be multifaceted. And I shared that I'm in a lot of different circles and a lot of different communities. And sometimes I'm in a community where there's a shared value, but a differing worldview. And it can be very interesting. It's taught me patience, it's taught me tolerance, understanding, and I've always been curious. So it's fed my curiosity because sometimes when you're in one community, someone could assume that your worldview is A, because wouldn't someone who values this, of course, they see the world this way. But what they may not know is because your experience has been so diverse and you're so multifaceted that your worldview is actually A plus B and a little bit of C
Mhm.
divided by. And that can be for confusing for some folks who maybe um, see things in a more monolithic way. I'll say it that way.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you show up as your authentic self, and if your authentic self is multifaceted, you have to be very good about understanding why you are in a particular community, um, any of them, and what you want to receive there and what you want to give there, and have to be really mature about that. Because again, folks may assume things about you because you're in that community that are not correct.
Right.
So they may
Right.
be your people in one respect, but not in totality. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's a good one. And so I would say your people in the sense of, like you said, the shared values. If you are, there are some people that feel they have to show up in the world a certain way.
Oh yeah.
And so I like how you said the totality of who I am is layered. And you're right, we do share that, right? So the totality of who Niambi is very layered, right? And so it's interesting because this week at work, so I have a day job, obviously. And in the past I've shared about the versions of me. And so I have three core, not versions, but aspects. And one is my ED, right? So that's my day job. And that is the part of me that is very direct, logical, can do hard things. Like that is her. And then there is the spiritist, right? That is always going to look at things through a spiritual lens, but it's very esoteric and can be very out there. Um, and then the lover girl, right? And so it was interesting because in work this week, one of the exercises we did was, or one of the icebreakers we did was, what would be your walk-up song? Like if you had a walk-up song. So all of my staff, they go through and they all give their walk-up song. And they were like, well, what's yours, Niambi? And I was like, well, today
And this
is probably Put On by Young Jeezy. And one girl was like, the snowman? Like she couldn't fathom that I listened to Jeezy. But you know me. And when I intro this podcast, I let everybody know I got a little bit of hoodoo, but I'm still just a girl from the Bronx, right? But the space in which this group of people see me on a day-to-day basis, they have decided that comes with certain things, right? And one of them did not include listening to Young Jeezy. But if they got a hold of my playlist, there'll be a lot of little surprises. But then at the same time, there are chakra frequency songs and chanting and reggae and all of the things. So just as long as the most multifaceted layers are still true to who you are, then you'll still find yourself in authentic spaces. So talk to us about how community becomes important for like your clients. I know you said that you work with women over 40,
Mhm.
women that are juggling a number of things. And I think Well, I'll stop there because I'm the queen of like, what do you call it? What is the sentence when it's like one police?
Circular, circular, oh my gosh.
No, I
Circular
was about
com
to say contractions, but that's not the word.
no,
Like two
no.
sentences, like with the comma.
Yes. Oh, compound sentences.
Compound, right. I'm the queen of compound sentences and multiple questions. So let's just,
Yeah.
so talk to us about how community is important when you are a woman over 40, navigating multiple things, keeping multiple balls in the air, and trying to figure out how to keep yourself on the map, like you said, when you
Mhm.
can't be a gym rat and you can't be in there, 8 days a week, 26 hours a day.
Okay, so a few things come to mind. So the first thing I will start with is the first thing I'll start with is we already said like what community means to me, right? And like a place where there is a shared value and a sharing of resources so that everyone who shares those values can reach their aim. So, assuming you agree that that's what community is, and assuming that you are down for that, make sure you have community in the different areas of your life. So, what we're doing here is we're gonna we're not doing that because of this, but what that will do is that can help you to reduce your cognitive load, and that can also help you share your load in terms of how your time is spent. Many of the women that I work with find it really, really hard to like lose weight, keep it off, to take care of their wellness really in any consistent capacity because they do wear many hats. They have, their days run from like 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., maybe earlier and or later, usually both. They are responsible. They are the ones holding it down most often. They are the powerhouse women. They are the ones that are women who lead, whether they are leading at work, leading their own business, or leading at home. And many of them are doing that leading in community, and many of them are doing that in at least 2 to 3 spaces simultaneously. So what happens is the resume looks really good. The achievements and the accolades look really good, but they are running themselves in the ground to do it because they are really good at the giving part of community, but not so great at the receiving part of community. So I would say, first, lean into your community in multiple places. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like from my life. So my kids go to 2 different schools, have a almost 16-year-old and a 10-year-old. One goes to school like right around the corner in the suburbs we live in. One I commute about 18 minutes on a good day up to 40 minutes, depending upon how the traffic is hitting into the city to take to school. So one of the things that community looks like for me is there is another family who has a son, same grade, same age range as my son. They are friends, they are classmates, they have played basketball together for a number of years, and they live in my neighborhood. So part of what community looks like for me is that we share the load often when it comes to getting these kids back and forth to the city, getting them places after school, getting them to basketball games. Like we literally have a joke. We have combined our last names, made one last name. We call ourselves the That Family. We have a That Family group chat where all the adults are. And like our kids know, like if I'm not around, but she is or he is, like tap into that because like that's your other family. And we share rides. A lot of times when the boys get out of school at a certain time and they have to be back at school for an athletic event, but there's not enough time really to do anything with. Like if we come home and go back, one of us may go down there and take them somewhere to eat or to study. And then the rest of us will come down at the time where it's time for the sporting event so that everyone isn't running around like crazy for no reason.
Mhm.
So we share in that way. So lean into your communities such that there is still some margin for you. I joke all the time. People always say, "Oh, you are so busy. Like, how do you even make time for working out?" And I'm like, because number one, I'm not a martyr, and I've been telling my kids since they were old enough to understand words, mommy's a person too.
Mhm.
So I lean into my community. I get the help I need because if I'm no good, it's no good. And I don't even say like I'm not any good for anybody else because that almost makes it seem like the only reason you should maintain yourself is so that you can serve. That's not true. However, I do understand that getting to that understanding or getting to that acceptance may be a journey. So if that's something that either just culturally or you're just not there yet, that sounds like nails on a chalkboard to you, then okay, let's go with if you're no good, then you can't serve. But that's not the reason why I take care of myself. I just believe, and I tell my clients all the time, you are worthy of your own care.
Yeah.
And especially for those that have children, like your children are going to get their idea of what's normal from what they see you do. So look at yourself and say, would I be okay if my daughter were doing this? Like
Mm,
if I saw that my daughter's blood pressure was through the roof, her A1C was high, her doctor's been telling her to lose weight for the last 10 years, and she's on 10 boards and 12 committees, would I be clapping or would I be pulling her to the side and saying, like, hey, I want you here? And so those are things that I think about.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, that was really good. Thank you for sharing that. A few things that resonated for me. I love that you said utilizing your community well can help reduce your cognitive load. I think people underestimate the weight that mental gymnastics can take on you, right? So reducing the cognitive load. Now, that's what I heard you say. And to me, what that meant was like you can almost go on autopilot in some ways in your life. You are automating certain things by using the support of your community, by leaning into these other families. Because I know, like, I think it was maybe one day this week, I needed to get some things done and I just wasn't moving. I wasn't moving. I was kind of like getting up and then sitting back down on the couch. And then I looked up and 20 minutes had passed. And then I got up again and I sat back down on the couch. And I got to a point where I realized that the mental gymnastics that was happening in my mind about how I was going to make a few things happen, it sent me into overwhelm. And
Mhm.
so I did nothing, right? Knowing how to reduce that cognitive load, is something that I feel like is one of those things that you might not be able to see in real time, but you'll realize it. You'll realize when you were doing this thing completely by yourself, it may have taken you longer. You may have gotten stuck, analysis paralysis. But over time, when you lean into your resources and start to automate things, you'll realize you're able to move through processes. You're more mentally sharp. So that I think is really important. And then I'm glad you brought up the piece about people that don't know how to receive, because I shared that community needs to be reciprocal. And I talked about all of the takers, and just know that if you are a giver, um, takers often don't have bounds, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
And that's true, but also here's what I learned. Here's what I've learned, believe, I don't know which one it is. But I feel like asking for support and receiving support signals to other people that it's okay to do so. And it also, I believe, signals to other people that you don't resent giving them support, right? Because a lot of times we're like, oh, I don't want to bother anybody. And then some of us have some real deep stuff where we're like, I don't want to owe anybody anything. And that is a job for a therapist. I'm not even going to like touch that here. But sometimes we're like, well, I don't want to bother anybody. So if you're in a community and somebody says to you, oh, why didn't you tell me you were working late? I could have picked up so and so. All the boys could have come to my house. All the girls could have come to my house and I could have fed them and I could have blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh, I didn't want to bother anybody. But you just did that for them last week. So what did you really just communicate? Like doing that for you was a bother. And I didn't want to burden you the way you just burdened
Burden
me.
me. Yeah.
So, I happily receive report when my friend that I mentioned, I'm gonna leave her nameless because she doesn't go on social media and stuff. But when she sometimes calls me and is like, "Oh, I'm on the way down to the city. Are you too?" Well, I've got to do XYZ. Do you want me to just get the boys? Listen, I have turned around. I have been in my car, but running a little bit behind, like only down the street from my house. And I have gotten that call that, oh, I'm going here and I'm going to take everybody here. Do you want me to just grab your son too? Yes. The answer is always yes, especially if they're offering and I didn't even ask. You have capacity. You want to pour into me that way? Absolutely, I'm going to receive it because there'll be a time where I can offer that to you. There'll be a time where you may need to request that of me. And if I receive your support when you're willing to give it, I have more to pour when you actually need me. So I will turn the car right back around, come home and get a workout or sit on the couch and read. Yes.
Right, right. Yeah. And well, I think the good piece about that is you share, for some people, it could be cultural, it could be whatever your history is, that this is a really hard thing, the idea of receiving or feeling that your value is tied up in what you do. And so what I would offer, if that resonates for anybody listening, is just take the first step of unpacking that. Unpacking what are some of the narratives that you tell yourself. Because if somebody offers us support and we say no when we really need it, I promise you there's a recording playing in your mind about that. There's something that's directing you to say, no, whatever the story is. So sometimes the step to getting toward healthy relationships, healthy community, healthy support is just unpacking the narrative. The other thing that I share is learning how to receive also gives somebody else the chance to experience the joy of giving. Right? There is joy in the ability to be able to help. There's joy if we're all in community and it's my turn this week to do whatever. It's my turn to pour in. So we also have to realize that, like, we rob other people of the opportunity to experience the giving and receiving, right? And so those were really good. The last thing I have written here that you shared that I think is important in community is knowing your strengths and being okay showing up in them. So when you talked about, I plan the camps, I this, I that. So go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was gonna say yes, like knowing your strengths and not feeling like reciprocating has that you always have to reciprocate in the way that other people pour out, if that makes sense. Because
Yes.
normally people are pouring out from their strength, and that's often not what they need back. So show
Mhm.
up with your strengths, and if someone is able to support you in a way that's different, that like you won't be able to support in that way, then just make sure you're supporting in a different way. And yeah, because I'm trying to articulate exactly what like, but I know there are certain things that aren't my ministry. Like it's not coming to mind right now because I want to give an example so badly. That's probably why
Yeah.
it's not in my mind. But like there are certain things that are just not my strength.
Right.
And in terms of showing up authentically, and not even like that I can't do it, but that it literally is a burden to do. So that's usually not the help that I offer, or that's not the contribution that I lead with,
Hmm.
because I know it's going to take a lot out of me. I know it's like it may not get done to the level of excellence that I want to show up in community. So I lead with my strengths. Like if we are curious about how to get the girls into different acting camps, if we want to know which trainers are the best for ball handling, like I am curious, so I can be somewhat of a research nerd. I am a connector by nature, so I usually know somebody who knows somebody. So like my community knows that those are the things that they can lean on me for. Yes.
Yeah, I think those were some really good pointers. Okay, so we are going to get ready to wrap up. I would say if you had some closing thoughts or closing ideas to share with people in this time, right? Just coming back to that, where we are finding people that are having a hard time with the state of our country, hard time with day-to-day life situations. What is some advice that you would give about how to utilize, which I know we already covered all of this, so I'm not trying to make you circular, but just like sum it up for us. What would you want to leave our audience with today?
Few things. So a reminder, because like you said, we covered a lot. We did cover this, but I want to say it like explicitly and give it its own space with some room to breathe around it, which is as you're being community minded, remember that any community, right, is only as strong as its weakest link. And I feel like maybe not the first step in strengthening a community or contributing to a community, but a very important step is making sure that you are taking care of yourself. And I mean that. So obviously there's emotionally, there's all the things, but I'm talking about physically. Physically, drink your water, move your body, eat healthy food. Because anything else that you want to do, this body is the one vessel that you get on earth to do your work.
Mhm.
And so it's going to be very hard to be powerful and consistently powerful over the long haul in your work if your vessel is broken down. So even if you're not in it for the vanity, even if you're not in it for I enjoy being a healthy person, even if none of that is important to you and you really are someone who is just all about the community, all about the work you're doing, understand that a big part of that work is you. And yeah, everything else you are building on top of you. So either if you are broken down, either your work is going to be a little bit broken down, or your work is going to be powerful, but it's not going to last as long because you will break. So I want to start with that. Um, and then in order to do that, lean into your community. Be willing to give and be willing to receive and understand that no one does all of this completely alone. There may be some parts that you do alone, but in order to make space for the parts you do alone, then sharing the load somewhere is a requirement. So I think that wraps it up.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for spending time with us today. This will wrap up our community building series. And then we will get back on track with just this being a podcast about my musings, all things hoodoo spiritist, yogi, and just a girl from the Bronx. So thank you all, and we will see you next week.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.